The hand stayed down. It stayed down for 4 full seconds, with a smaller hand held out level in front of it, and 200 sporting goods dealers on folding chairs watched the offer hang there and go nowhere. 6'9", 289 pounds. 39 legitimate matches, 39 wins, 22 of them inside 4 minutes. And Dane Ostrander had never once shaken hands before a demonstration and had no intention of starting on carpet in Ohio. Hands get shaken after, Ostrander said. This one belongs to a photograph. Photographs do not need shaking. Nobody in that hall had told him whose hands were in the photographs. The mezzanine of a dealer's convention on Euclid Avenue. Cleveland, February 1968. The offered hand came down. It went instead to a chrome display platform stacked with weight plates where a 19-year-old sat with his right wrist in plaster from the knuckles to the elbow. Teru Iwata had been paid $9 to hold poses for 11 hours in a rented studio on the 21st of January, and on the 9th hour, Ostrander had held a shoulder pose a great deal longer than the shutter needed, and the wrist had gone in a way that put a boy in a cast for 6 weeks. He was the body in photographs 9 through 14 of a mail-order course. Bruce Lee had driven from a hotel on Prospect with a copy of that course in his jacket pocket, and he said what he wanted in 9 seconds, out loud, over the noise of 200 chairs. The plates. The name off them. The boy's hand paid. Quill published it. 12 lessons in scientific self-defense, $4.95. 11,400 orders taken on a coupon in the back of a hunting magazine, and he had a Galley proof under his arm and a fountain pen he did not put away when he spoke. The endorsement runs 3 printings, Quill said. That was signed in October. The plates are collateral on a printing bill, and the bill is not paid. The claim in it is wrong. The claim in it is on page 61, and 200 dealers have already ordered against it. Quill turned so the chairs got the rest of it. 140 pounds stops 289. That is the claim. The dealers can watch it work, or the dealers can watch it fail, but they are not driving back to Akron on a promise. Ostrander crossed the carpet while Quill was still talking. He put his open palm on top of the smaller man's head, flat, the way a man palms a melon, and turned him a quarter of the way toward the exit stairs with it. The dealers made a noise that was mostly relief. Bruce took the booklet out of his jacket, opened it to page 9, and set it face up on the platform beside the boy's cast. Therefore Quill capped his pen, because a demonstration had just agreed to itself, and Quill had not had to pay for it. Grips and hands, Quill said. Nothing to the head, nothing off the carpet, nothing thrown. Wendell Frost had been hired at $40 for the afternoon to shoot the display stands, and he had a Rolleiflex on a strap and 36 exposures on the roll, and a habit of saying the number out loud as he wound. 8, Frost said, winding. Ostrander closed at 3:44 by the clock over the escalator. He did not crouch. Crouching was for men who needed an angle, and a man with a 41-inch reach and 11 inches of height on his opponent does not need an angle. He needs the other man's collar. He took it, high on the back of the neck with the left hand, took the point of the elbow with the right, and walked. 9 feet of carpet went by underneath. Bruce turned off the collar tie twice and got turned back twice. Therefore his heel found the base of the chrome platform. Therefore there was nothing left to give ground with. Therefore Ostrander dropped his hips, locked both hands in the small of the smaller man's back, and lifted him off the floor to the height of his own chest. Bruce did not fight the lift. That was correct, and it was also not enough. Because Ostrander did not throw him, he sat down with him, all 289 pounds arriving on top, and the edge of the platform took the back of Bruce's neck on the way down. The sound was flat and short. A tray of chrome plates walked 6 inches sideways. 19. Frost said. Blood came out of the eyebrow first, a straight line of it down to the jaw. What did not show was the other thing. The whole left arm went cold from the shoulder to the fingertips. Therefore, the left hand did not close when Bruce told it to. Therefore, he came up off the carpet using one hand, one knee, and a display stanchion. Nothing on page 61 about that, Quill said. He wrote something on the galley, and the dealers laughed on a half-second delay, the way a room laughs when it is checking with itself first. Taru got off the platform with his cast held against his chest. Pages 9 to 14 can be done left-handed. It is the same lesson. Sit down, Bruce said. 6 weeks in plaster says otherwise. Sit down. Ostrander stood in the middle of the carpet rolling his right shoulder in its socket, and he was doing it because of something he was not going to hand to a room. 39 men had gone up in that body lock. All 39 had grabbed for something on the way, a wrist, a belt, a handful of shirt. This one had grabbed nothing at all. It had gone up soft and come down turning, and the neck had taken the platform instead of the base of the skull. And the difference between those two things was 2 inches and a decision made in the air. Again, Bruce said. That was the demonstration. Again, Ostrander came at 3:49, and he came the same way, because the same way had worked in 39 buildings. He reached for the collar. Bruce let the hand come, stepped off the line at 45 degrees, and took the reaching arm at the wrist and the shoulder of the sleeve at the same instant, then pulled it across, down and past, in the direction it was already traveling, which is called an arm drag by every wrestler who has ever used one, and is the only thing in wrestling that costs nothing to attempt. 289 pounds went past its own front foot. Ostrander landed on his hip and his elbow on convention carpet over concrete, and the chairs came up in one motion, 3 of the dealers standing on theirs, and Frost fired without winding. 26. Ostrander was up in a second and a half. Everybody saw the speed, therefore the noise cut off in the middle, because a man who gets up that fast should never have been down. Carpet is not a mat, Quill said, fast, already walking. No fall was called, because there are no falls in a demonstration. It goes until one man cannot continue. That was not the agreement, Bruce said. The agreement is the publisher's. Quill turned to the chairs for the second half, because the second half was the part that sold. And if the author cannot continue, the demonstration finishes tonight with the boy in the pictures, cast and all, exactly as printed. Therefore, the thing that had put a giant on the floor became the reason a 19-year-old with 6 weeks of plaster on his arm was now on the card. Therefore, Bruce's left hand, which had not closed since 3:44, was the only clock in the building that mattered. Therefore, Ostrander understood that he no longer had to win. He only had to last longer than an arm that was not working. He stopped standing tall at 3:53. He came in with his hips low and his chest wide and his hands out of reach of the good arm, and he used the haul instead of his height. Display stanchions on the left. The chrome platform behind, the stacked cartons of an archery distributor on the right. He gave Bruce 11 feet of carpet to work in, then 8, then 4. Therefore, there was no angle to step off to. Therefore, he put his right forearm across the smaller man's collarbones and leaned 289 pounds on it. 21 seconds of that. Bruce's shoulder blades against a carton of bow limbs, and his left arm hanging dead at his side. 31, Frost said, and he said it quietly, because 31 of 36 meant 5 frames left, and nothing yet on the roll that Quill would want printed. 9 grips attempted by 3:56, and 7 of them had closed. 7 closed grips on a man who was still standing, and Ostrander had never needed more than 4 in his life. Therefore, he did the arithmetic that he had never once had to do in a working match, and the arithmetic came out wrong. 7 grips. No submission. Nothing gone out of the other man's eyes. Every one of the 7 had ended with the small man somewhere the grip was not, and the last 2 had ended with Ostrander's own right elbow further from his own body than he had put it. He was not going to say that to a room full of dealers from Akron. "Quit on the carpet," Ostrander said, and the volume had come out of it. "The boy stays on the platform. The photographs stay as they are. No, nothing in this hall is worth an arm that has stopped working. The page is wrong. It gets pulled." Quill was writing on the galley with the fountain pen, and he was writing quickly. Therefore, he did not notice the corner of the galley sheet slide off the platform edge and go face up onto the carpet, and it lay there for 11 seconds inside Ostrander's field of view. Page 61. Set in type. A photograph block with no photograph in it yet, and under the empty block, a caption already typeset, already spelled, already spaced. National champion Dane Ostrander, 289 pounds, submits in 7 seconds. Underneath it, clipped to the galley, a distributor's order for 40,000 copies. Dated the 19th of January, signed, with a delivery date in April. Nobody had told Ostrander that his part in the afternoon had been typeset 9 days before the boy's wrist went. He picked the sheet up off the carpet with 2 fingers. He read it twice. He held it out to the chairs so the front row could read the caption. Therefore, Quill came for it. Therefore, Ostrander opened his hand and let him have it, which cost Quill considerably more than a struggle would have. $400 was the photograph fee, Quill said, low, both hands moving. A demonstration is worth 6. The caption is a printer's convenience. Nobody types a caption after the block is set. Nobody types a finish before a match, Ostrander said. He turned around on the carpet with the whole hall on its feet, and he had stopped being loud entirely, and the last thing he said before he closed was said to nobody in particular. Nothing typed happens on carpet. He came at 4:02 with the thing he had never needed, and had drilled 10,000 times anyway, both hands underneath, double underhooks, palms climbing for the back of the neck, all 289 pounds behind a chest that had crushed 39 men into folding position. 7 seconds. Frost put his eye to the finder and stopped winding between frames. In the first second, the underhooks came in low and wide. Therefore, Bruce did not back away from them and did not pull his own arms down against them, because a man who fights double underhooks with his elbows loses in the second. He stepped in, straight in, off the right leg, closing the gap where the giant's forearms were still gathering. Therefore, the 2 hands arrived behind a body that was already past them. In the second and third seconds, his right hand went up over the top of Ostrander's left shoulder, and his fingers found the shallow hollow above the collarbone, at the back edge of it, where the trunk of nerve that supplies the muscle that lifts the arm crosses the bone, with nothing over it but skin, a strap of muscle, and a great deal of confidence. And the heel of that hand drove down into the hollow at an angle no shoulder pad has ever covered. In the 4th second, the left underhook stopped climbing. It did not release, it stopped, in place, like a rope gone slack at one end. In the 5th second, Bruce's right hand slid 4 inches to the point of the shoulder, and his hips turned a quarter turn away, and he took the whole arm, the dead one, across and down in the same arm drag he had used at 349, with one difference that a wrestler in the 3rd row spent the rest of his life describing to people. The first time, he had dragged the arm to put the man on the floor. This time he dragged it and kept the shoulder. Therefore the joint went up and back past the range a shoulder holds when the muscle that holds it has stopped receiving orders, and the socket rotated inside the sleeve of a 289-pound man who could feel it happening and had nothing available to answer with. In the 6th second, Ostrander went down onto one knee. Not thrown, steered. In the 7th, nothing happened, which was the part of it the dealers talked about in the parking structure afterward. Bruce let the arm go and stepped back 2 paces with blood dried on his jaw and a left hand hanging useless at his own side, and the arm he had let go of stayed exactly where he had left it, hanging in front of a kneeling man's shin. 18, Frost said. He had fired 7 frames in 7 seconds without winding once, which is not a thing a Reliflex does, and the frame counter said 18, and the strip inside said something else. Ostrander tried to lift the arm. It came up perhaps 3 inches off his thigh and stopped. Therefore he tried again with his shoulder rather than his arm, and the shoulder hitched, and nothing above it moved. Therefore he stood up and used his left hand to pick the right wrist up out of the air and hold it against his own chest, and 200 dealers watched a national champion carry his own arm like something belonging to another man. The hall made no sound for 11 seconds. Frost did not wind. "It comes back," Bruce said. "The nerve is stunned, not cut. 20 minutes flat on the back with a hand under the head. That is not a hold in any book. It is not a hold." Ostrander stood there working the fingers, which worked, on an arm that would not rise. "Then what is it?" Bruce said the longest thing he said in that building, and he said it toward the chairs rather than the man, because the chairs were the reason any of it had happened. The muscle that lifts an arm is fed by one line that crosses the top of the collarbone in a hollow the size of a thumb, and nothing in a gymnasium anywhere makes that hollow stronger, which is why the claim on page 61 is not about a small man beating a big one, and why the page is wrong, and why the page gets pulled. Quill had the Galley in one hand and the pen in the other, and he was standing very still, because Wendell Frost had crossed the carpet with the strap over his shoulder and put the Rolleiflex behind his own hip, and every man in the front 3 rows had already read a caption for a photograph that now existed. "The negatives are the publisher's property," Quill said. "The fee covers the roll." "The fee covered the display stands," Frost said. "Page 61 was never on the shot list. The caption never runs," Bruce said. Quill turned to him with the pen still up. "The caption is the only thing in that book worth 40,000 copies. It never runs. Not in the printing, not in the coupon, not anywhere." It happened. 200 men saw it happen. "It happened," Bruce said. "It does not get sold." Ostrander's chin came up. He was still holding his own wrist against his chest. "Why? A record is a man's wage." Therefore the 40,000 order went back across the platform unsigned. Therefore Quill wrote $214 against a doctor's bill on Payne Avenue for a 19-year-old's wrist. Therefore the name on page 1 came off the plates that week with a chisel because there was no time to reset the type, and page 61 was pulled entire, which left a 4-page hole in the second printing that a mail-order publisher in Ohio filled with a chart of pressure points that nobody had checked. Bruce picked the booklet up off the chrome platform with his right hand. He put it in his jacket. Then he put the same hand out, level, exactly where it had been at 3:41. Ostrander looked at it for a second and a half. His right arm did not come up. It was never going to come up in that building. Therefore he brought his left hand across his own body and turned it and took the offered right hand with it, left to right, awkward as a schoolboy, and held it in front of 200 dealers on folding chairs for 4 seconds, which was the length of the pause he had put in the air at the start of the afternoon. Then He leaned down with his mouth an inch from the smaller man's ear and said 4 words. Bruce answered him with 2. Wendell Frost was standing 3 feet away with a loaded camera, and he got no part of it, and he was asked about it at camera clubs and at his own retirement dinner in 1981, and by a magazine that offered him money in 1994, and every time he gave a different non-answer, which was how everybody knew he had heard it. The left hand cost 9 weeks. 2 vertebrae in the neck had come together across a nerve root when the platform edge took the back of his neck at 3:44. Therefore, the hand stayed numb from the base of the thumb to the little finger through the whole of March and most of April. Therefore, Bruce Lee taught with a leather glove on that hand to keep students from noticing the way it sat, and a seminar in Denver set for the first weekend of March was returned with a telegram of 11 words. Nobody in Cleveland ever heard about the glove, because the man who could not feel the hand did not mention the hand. Teru Iwata came out of the cast in the second week of March with a wrist that never fully straightened. He worked 26 years in a print shop in Detroit setting type for other people's catalogs, and he told the story to apprentices over the composing stone, and the part he told slowest was never the 7 seconds. It was a champion picking a typeset caption up off a carpet and holding it out so the front row could read it. Quill was out of the mail-order business by the autumn of 1970. Frost printed the roll himself the following Tuesday, 36 frames, and there were only 35 on the strip. Maybe the mezzanine never held it. Nobody who paid to be in those chairs ever said different. The right arm came back over 11 weeks, most of it. Ostrander wrestled until 1974 with a shoulder that worked below the collarbone and did not care to work above it. Then he coached high school in Elyria for 22 years, and he opened the first practice of every season with the handshake and nothing else. 30 boys in a gymnasium learning that a hand goes out before anything happens, and that the record of the man attached to it is not the coach's to spend. He shook with the left. Every time, for 22 seasons, and none of them ever asked him why.